This is going to be your guide for using Cinderace in Pokemon Sword and Shield. But before we get into that, shoutouts to G Fuel. They gave me this epic jersey, makes me feel like a true Pokemon master in the Galar region. Also, some Sour Cherry energy crystals. Red? Fire typing? You know what? This one is for the Score Bunny squad, which I'm a part of. That stuff kicks. Pokemon Sword and Shield is super hype right now, so use code Verlisify for 30% off your G Fuel order until November 19th. It's 10% otherwise, and then use that energy formula to stay hype with these amazing games. Now, on to what Cinderace can do. So, Cinderace is going to be a pure fire Pokemon. Here's that for reference, and much like with Inteleon, I don't think it matters because we are pretty frail. So ground, rock, water, stay away from those. We're going to be resistant to bug, steel, fire, grass, ice, and fairy. When did fire pick up so many resistances? My goodness, so that pure fire typing actually going to give Cinderace some chances to come in and maybe endure a hit, or maybe just scare off some Pokemon when they go, wow, I can't do anything about this. So, we have a couple of exclusives on the Cinderace. Pyro Ball, 10% chance to burn the target. With 120 power on a 119 speed Pokemon with 116 attack. That is not fair. Flare Blitz is fair because you're allowed to have 120 power and then it gives 33% recoil. The only drawback to Pyro Ball is the 90% accuracy, and you have to think about other moves. Stone Edge only gives you the 100 base power for 80% accuracy. So that's weird. And then Pyro Ball still has the chance to get the burn. So you know there's going to be some really stupid situations where Cinderace comes in, lands that Pyro Ball, and then the opponent's going to get burned, therefore the non-stab Earthquake or Waterfall is not going to KO it, and then Cinderace wins the game, because that free 10% chance just tacked on to a ridiculous move on a pretty overtuned stat Pokemon. Because I was comparing Inteleon to Greninja as like, oh, the water starter shenanigans sweeper Pokemon, but actually, if anything, Cinderace is closer to Greninja, and better than Greninja. Minus type coverage. More on that later. But yeah, we have a 122 speed Pokemon with 103 as the highest offense. Cinderace puts that to shame. 116 on the offense, and then 3 less speed. Now that puts it into a very strange speed tier. It's 1 below Inteleon, so it's not allowed to be that much better than Inteleon, and it does get outsped by other Pokemon like Dugtrio, so that's going to be something to keep in mind, and then Greninja does have the advantage over it. 119, still in a pretty good spot, and then it gets Libero. This ability is Protean. Pokemon type change, match type of the move it's about to use, match type of the move, no! You can't do that. You can't just be like, hey, let's make a more, like a harder hitting Greninja, but just knock 3 points off the speed. There weren't really many 120 base speed matchups that were getting in the way of Greninja being kind of ridiculous. So, that's something to keep an eye on, and also, Cinderace gets another exclusive move, Court Change. Switches sides of field effects. Now, this is going to be stuff like Light Screen, Reflect, and the like. And that means, like, what if you just run the weirdest double support Cinderace? So you just try, like, steal anything beneficial your opponent's trying to do. Because that would be something you can't predict. And once again, like the Inteleon, when you're playing with this much weirdness and potential on a starter Pokemon, you can either just run the straight up screw you, I win moveset, and you endure, the opponent gets baited, you get +1 attack, and then Blaze activates, and now your Pyro Ball is unstoppable on really crazy stats. So there is, once again, going to be some kind of vulnerability here, that if they have priority, they can use that to take you out, or if they just have a Pokemon faster than 119 speed. But what happens if you switch it up and you go with the Adamant nature, and then you bring in a Salac Berry? Endure has that speed priority, so it doesn't really matter. You take the hit, and now you're the 119 speed, then becoming completely unstoppable when it comes to a +1, 119 non-beneficial nature max EVs. I don't think putting hit points really does anything. If anything, that actually makes it to where you might not fall under a quarter hit points. You have the Endure, so just put the stats where they lie. And I was even thinking about Bulk Up. Like, what happens if you bring in Cinderace against a physical Pokemon, you use Bulk Up, you survive the hit, and then you Endure? and then everything procs. So now you're still getting your +1 attack, +1 speed, unstoppable Cinderace. You do have to give up some kind of move coverage, so maybe not bulk up, maybe just all moves from there, or you just slap in something here. Acrobatics. Cinderace gets acrobatics. We're getting all that free synergy, aren't we? So we lose our item, gain stats, and then we have a 110 base power move and a 120 base power move. Fortunately, we're only dealing with Blaze right now. Once again, we find out how the hidden abilities become available on the starter Pokemon, then that's going to change the game even more. Pokemon Home or some kind of like later distribution in 2020. But even then, this is still pretty scary. What happens when it gets its hidden ability? Effectively the same thing, just stronger. Also, Cinderace gets Reversal, so you can consider that. Because Acrobatics gets 110 power. Pfft, casual. Reversal, let's just hop on over to Bulbapedia and have this handy little chart tell you what happens. So you Endure, you land at 1 hit points, and then your Reversal does 200 power. You can also get that +1, you can also just have speed, you can just be incredibly ridiculous on that, and nothing can top you. The only way that stops you is a Sucker Punch or some kind of priority, and technically you mind game people. You can just use Endure at 1 hit points, and then Sucker Punch is going to fail. And you have more PP, so if you play it perfectly, they can't do anything about that, which means they need to like have a quick attack or some kind of other weird priority move just kind of tacked on their team for situations like this. But if Inteleon and Cinderace end up becoming very popular, then that's going to be how it's done, and what do you do about that, especially with the hidden ability? Because now you're also going to be getting Stab, 200 base power, +1, 116 attack, 119 speed Pokemon, or once again, Adamant Nature, swap it around, because you don't need the +1 attack when you're dealing with this kind of ridiculous damage, and then you can just kind of tech in all the other coverage that you want. And then here's some extra things that you can run. Gunk Shot was kind of the problematic thing on Greninja, so I'm really happy they gave it to Cinderace. When you're running Libero, or even just kind of anything else. Iron Head, that's good, and Zen Headbutt is the potential game changer. This means that if the opponent does not have an immediate priority move, you don't get knocked out. Because here's how the flow goes. You Endure, you take the hit, all of your crazy stuff pops off, and then you go into your Dynamax and use Zen Headbutt. That's at Psychic Terrain. Psychic Terrain says no priority, and your opponent just has to lose that Pokemon for free. And then they bring in their Pokemon, well, now they can't use priority for a couple turns. So Zen Headbutt is also kind of like the crazy tech you might want to consider. I was looking for a Psychic type move on Inteleon to kind of do the same thing with this kind of setup, and it's just really scary, crazy stuff. A couple other things to consider, like with the bulk up, depending on what's happening, like if your opponent's trying to set up too much defenses and survive and eventually chip you down, you can kind of match them on that bulk up, and then things get really scary for the opponent. So that's something to consider. And like I said with Inteleon, don't even do all of these shenanigans. Just bypass them altogether. Why? Because you're strong. What is someone going to do about a 119 speed Pokemon with 116 attack using Flare Blitz, a better Flare Blitz, with Life Orb? And then Blaze comes into play. Actually, you can, that's so you can still Endure, but then Life Orb knocks you out, so don't do that too much. I think that that's going to be the weird thing about these interactions. If Cinderace becomes popular, if Inteleon becomes popular, they're going to play similarly, and it's going to depend on how the meta reacts and what people are most likely to do. Do you just recklessly run into a Cinderace, get Endure procced, and then just lose the battle by getting reverse swept off of that? Or do people play passive? Do they try to set up? Do they try to not instantly go into the Patea Berry and then set up hard moves? But if they don't go aggro onto your Cinderace and you don't have Endure, then that means you get free crazy amounts of damage and you're just two-shotting everything. So Life Orb, Choice Band, those are going to be great options on Cinderace. Focus Sash, that way you can just keep pummeling them with moves, and then you have all kinds of coverage options, and like I kind of showed, you have Bulk Up and weird things. You could just kind of sit there and be really threatening and have like 4 different things you want to do. And if the opponent picks wrong, you're getting at least 1 KO, if not the entire battle. And I don't know, here's double Cinderace, because this might actually work, and it would be hilarious, and you would get on Fan Fridays. Like, if Reflect Light Screen under Prankster ends up becoming popular, it doesn't matter if you have 119 speed, because they're just going to outspeed you, so you preempt the court change, you steal it, and now you get to ruin them. You can taunt them after that, you can ally switch to make them make blunders, or you just start just throwing down Pyro Balls, because even then, it's a 116 attack Flare Blitz. It's going to be doing over half of any Pokemon's health, even without the Adamant Nature or any kind of Life Orb or anything. And then if you followed up with a very powerful double-hitting move, you're looking at a KO. So you're shutting down a Prankster Pokemon, taking out the Pokemon it's trying to support, and you just have a lot of options there to really mess up your opponent. And you've got Focus Sash. Also, another thing about Focus Sash, if that's what you're running for just the pure aggro, put in X coverage here, I don't know, counter Focus Sash. You got it, coach. Just do tons of damage. Why even have Iron Head when the reversal at this point does 200? So you get a KO on the counter, you get a KO on the reversal, then you just do a lot of damage on Pyro Ball. Congratulations, you've done way more than 1-for-1 on your Cinderace, because it's ridiculous. At that point, you wouldn't want Adamant, you want like Jolly or something. But silly things are going to happen with this Pokemon, and I don't know if I'm going to love it or hate it, because this might be like the most broken starter we've ever seen. Also, other things to consider, I'm surprised at how coverage works, because Fire, Fighting, and Flying, according to Generation 7, so this doesn't have the Generation 8 Pokemon, this doesn't have like new typings and new things to be aware of and stuff like that, but Pokemon DB's type coverage checker, that's perfect coverage. I didn't even know you could do that with Flying, Fire, and Fighting so easily just like that. So that means this gets to hit everything. And you can kind of play around with whatever else you want. So yeah, this is the full coverage, but then you might want to consider that Zen Headbutt so you don't get prioritied out. Still things to consider, still things to balance. You can use this type coverage checker to kind of, check what you want on a moveset if you're going to find out what's good in the meta, what's bad against the meta, and then when all this stuff gets updated, it's going to be super crazy. And then it's time for damage calculations, just to bring it home and show you guys the silliness. So Garchomp, it got snapped from the Galar Dex, but it's definitely worth talking about, because it's a really good way to gauge how much damage you're doing with a Pokemon. Max hit points, 95 defense Garchomp, really tanky Pokemon. You KO it on reversal. When you get like the +1 Protean, pure everything going on, it's still really crazy, which means the average Pokemon, let's go and find, actually Inteleon isn't here, let's go and find Greninja, because Greninja is actually slightly tankier than the Inteleon. So what happens here? Very much KO. Like the Acrobatics, +1 Acrobatics with a Protean, that's enough to just KO the average sweeping Pokemon, and you have good coverage. So even if it's a tanky Pokemon that you're hitting super effective, it's not going to be able to survive. That reversal is going to clean up almost anything you can imagine. I'm guessing, like, yeah, Toxapex would be really the main response to this kind of Pokemon. So even uninvested, you don't get to kill it, but still, like, the opponent is going to have to be able to just completely wall you out and then kind of give up their Toxapex, They have to take 80 damage to respond to this Pokemon after it already scored a KO. So the opponent has to give up a Pokemon, and then Toxapex takes, 3/4 of its health on top of that. It's a very big +1, if not better. Like I said, it's not a perfect Pokemon with the Cinderace, but it's ridiculous. And even then, just straight offense Cinderace is insane. That if Cinderace doesn't get one-shot and survives in red, your opponent is going to have a serious problem to deal with, because Blaze, Life Orb, and remember, it's not Flare Blitz. Like, Flare Blitz is just the analog here because Pokemon Showdown hasn't updated to Generation 8 moves. So the 120 base power fire attack, boosted by Blaze, on just a Jolly Nature, no +1, with a Life Orb, is then shutting down Pokemon as strong as Silvally. And even without the Life Orb, that's kind of insane stuff. And I mean, it makes me even wonder, depending on like how much of a stretch or craziness you're going for, would Muscle Band? This might be the only time I advocate for Muscle Band, because Cinderace is that strong, and it even gets more ridiculous when you have the Protean like ability, because it's just stacking so much crazy damage onto everything. You just go with the Flare Blitz. And the thing about the Muscle Band is you're still allowed to run Endure, because then Life Orb doesn't take you out. Like, when you're dealing with this much damage, that 10% actually matters. Or if we're only going exclusively with Blaze, then you run Charcoal, or, that would be a Flame Plate, but there's no plates in this game, so that's what it takes to just neutrally one-shot a 95-95. And also, you don't run the acrobatics if you have Life Orb or Charcoal or Muscle Band or anything like that. And I guess that makes the Endure kind of weird, or maybe it's an insurance policy. You know, the Endure is here if you can really predict an overly aggro Pokemon, but it means you're not 100% reliant on that proccing your Lychee Berry or whatever weird combo that you're up to. So that means you just take the regular hit, you drop down to 25% health or whatever, and then you're still good to go on big damage like that. And maybe if they try to go offensive again, that's when you can Endure and then max proc a reversal, and then you just kind of keep the Iron Head here. But as we kind of show with that damage, Muscle Band in this situation seems fine. There's no way. There's no way. There's no. There's no. That's my response. Is there's no. And it kind of shows that you don't even need Libero for Cinderace to be really, really good, because reversal at 100 base power doesn't care. And then especially if you're doing Lychee Berry, but even reversal Muscle Band on 116 is ridiculous. We're getting Pyro Ball boosted by that Blaze, which is kind of as strong as reversal. Then Iron Head is hitting super effective, be kind of as strong as Pyro Ball. Damage. That's really how you explain this, is just too much damage. I guess the only way you try to stop this thing is with a Scarf Pokemon or a Water Pokemon, and that's all that you, like a bulky Water Pokemon. So that seems to be the Achilles heel of these starters, but it's very specific stuff. Bulky Water Pokemon, priority moves, and then Choice Scarf. So anything faster than it when it comes to both Cinderace and Inteleon. But outside of that, it's gonna be really hard to stop and a really scary Pokemon. So if you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you there's no way it's this strong.